Well, I can say that's probably the best introduction that I've ever had, and I'm totally appreciative. So like Tony said, my name's Ryan Kimble. I'm the CEO of Agent Pipeline. I'm a managing partner at Integrity, and I've got a great wife. We've been married for 19 years, 2 amazing kids. I was talking to Eric earlier. Tomorrow morning, I leave for Maui. If you guys have kids that play travel sports, we are a huge baseball and softball family. I've coached baseball for years. My wife coaches softball. And both kids are in high school, and this is the first summer they're not playing every weekend. So, so my wife was like, we need to go somewhere. And I was like, just plan it. And then when the dates came through, I was like, oh, I got to call Christian because this is right close to the date of his conference. So I'm very excited. I've never been. Tomorrow should be a fun day. So we'll see how it goes. But today we're going to talk about agency building. I got in the business back in 1996. Got licensed in 96. I was talking to Roy last night. He's got an amazing business down in Texas. I thought I had been doing it for a long time, but Roy got licensed in 1974. Anybody before that?
Don't look at me.
So 1974 was 1 year before I was even born. I remember being the youngest guy in every meeting, and now I've got gray hair and seem to be. Yeah, exactly. But I was fortunate to attend the same conference last week with Tony, Medicarians in Vegas. Fantastic conference. My voice is gone as well. Last night of the conference, we had a concert with Rob Bass, like Tone Loke, Young MC, Mark McGrath. So if you look at the right websites, you'll see some very embarrassing videos of me singing. That's why I've lost my voice. But a little bit on us, and like today, here's our session. I'll tell you, I took a presentation that was 30-some slides and just kind of got it down to 12. I definitely want to leave time for Q&A at the end. I think it's great that I get a chance to talk to you guys about agency building and agent recruiting. But I know there'll be things that you have questions on that I may miss or not think of. So think of those as we go, and we can have a few minutes of Q&A, and you can ask me about anything. CMS, call recordings, distribution, whatever. I may not answer the question, but I'll definitely try to. So our history, so for Agent Pipeline, it was a great company that my dad started back in the late 80s. I came in, I got licensed in 96, started working with agents and agencies in 98. And essentially we started working in the business to help agents with individual medical and group medical. And it's been an amazing journey since. Today I'll walk you through some of those stories. Hopefully those stories will give you some insight into ways that we were able to build agencies, also ways that agencies that we work with have been built. We, at maybe a size and scale, we're out of West Virginia. We have about 130 employees. Last 12 months, we wrote 298,000 enrollments. That's predominantly Medicare Advantage, also Medicare supplements. Who loves ACA? I love ACA. And ACA. We're real good at health insurance. Whatever that product is, that's what we do. We primarily support agencies, call centers, agents in the space, trying to help them be more successful and ultimately help accelerate their growth. But today, this is kind of our session. We'll talk about why to build an agency, identifying any value prop that you currently have, or trying to discover some that you may not know that you have. We'll get into some agent recruiting, and then thinking about how do you take a great idea that you have and scale it up. I was on the panel this week in Vegas. Another great agent had a small agency and was just killing it on how he was doing his business. And the question is, how can we help you scale that? How can you go from, one area of Houston and take this all across the state of Texas? So we'll get into that. Let's talk about the history, though, first. So, like I said, I came in 96, and for those of you who are in the business, who was in the business in 96? Okay, that's great that we have so many young folks in the building. Now I feel really old. But the way insurance was distributed back in the 90s, and maybe I'll go back and describe what distribution means. When we look at what we do as a company, and there are terms out there like FMO, IMO, NMA, distributor, we basically partner with insurance carriers and health plans to help develop distribution for their products. And a lot of times it's partnering with agencies and agents like you guys to ultimately sell those products. And so distribution back in the 90s was very regional based, meaning that one GA in one state, or maybe in one market like a Houston, ultimately had an exclusive contract with a specific product type. So back then in this market, it may have been a Medicare supplement. Anybody selling long-term care? That's great. Three of you. Back then it was long-term care was a piece of it. But the reality was, if you wanted to sell a product, you had to get in front of one GA in a specific market and try to get that product. And so what we did in West Virginia is that we had a one group product. So if any group agent in West Virginia wanted to sell a product, they had to sell that with us. Now that's changed dramatically. That's moved into regional exclusives, where agents and agencies over in like the early 2000s, into 2004 and 5, were able to have multiple contracts. And I remember a company called American Medical Security. It was an individual medical carrier. We wrote with a company called Central Reserve Life. And we really wanted to offer this other product. But unfortunately, the carrier wouldn't give us a contract because we were already representing Central Reserve Life. And the dynamic today is we need to have contracts with every carrier, right, to support all the agencies that we work with across the country. And back then, the carriers were very, I guess, kind of linear, where they would go with one agent, one GA, one marketplace, and that's all changed. Now, the dynamic back then, too, was if I was a GA and I had West Virginia or I had Arkansas, I owned that state, and everybody played by my rules, right? If you wrote a piece of business that I didn't think was a very good piece of business, then you would lose that contract, right? And that old school mentality has changed completely to where now we are obviously multi-carrier. We work with, let's have everybody take Medicare Advantage certification, okay? Anybody take more than 10 carrier certifications? About 20. What about 30? I got to take 52 this year. And you think about a lot of time. The hardest one is Christus in Texas. Anybody take Christus Healthcare? That is the hardest one I've taken every year. But so now we're multi-channel or multi-product line, which gives agents obviously access to a lot of different products, a lot of different opportunities. But that universe of what was before and what's changed, I mean, honestly, technology's been that big game changer. When I first started recruiting agents in the space of Medicare supplements, I was 23 or 24, and I remember putting together on Microsoft Publisher, if you guys remember that application, a one-sheeter. And I was like, I have 270 fax numbers for group agents in West Virginia. I'm going to sit at the fax or stand at the fax and push this through 270 times and just fax it to all these agents. And it was I thought it was a great idea. I was 24 or whatever. And what was interesting, it was a few hours at the fax machine. I go back upstairs. My light's blinking with a voicemail, and I had my first agent had responded. And the agent actually said, your rates are like 30% higher than anybody else. Why would you be promoting this product? And back then, we didn't have CSG actuarial. We didn't have any information, or at least I didn't. And so the thought of, how do we determine what products are competitive? What network provide? I mean, you guys remember the network books, the provider books you had to flip through? And even certification, when Medicare Advantage came out in 2005, 6, and 7, what I did for those 3 years was basically fly around the country doing what? Anybody know? I was certifying agents. So we'd sit in a room like this for 3 hours, walk through PowerPoint by PowerPoint, and then I would give you a test at the end, and then you would have to take it. And then you would pass them all to me. I would figure out how to get them in my suitcase, take them back to West Virginia, and then shoot them to the carrier, and all extremely compliant, obviously. But just an interesting dynamic of how technology's changed the game. And truly today, with all the things you see from the folks that are here, plus some of the real cool enrollment platforms that are out there, technology's really changed our industry. And how many folks are selling over the phone right now? Awesome. So a big number selling over the phone. How many are ready to record their calls on June 28th? Perfect. Awesome. That makes me feel good because I was on a 2-hour call trying to figure out how to spend millions of dollars to do call recording. And if everybody's already got it, then we just saved a few $1 million on it. So that's a joke. That's a joke. What do agencies look like today? And I'm just going to hit on these and then we can talk more about them. But what I would think of as a retail agent or agency is a brick and mortar, right? Now that also includes probably a lot of folks in this room where you are working either solo or you're working in a dynamic with a couple other agents to help consumers understand their Medicare options or their under 65 options, but you are working directly with that consumer, generally in a face-to-face network or face-to-face environment, sometimes over the phone. You also have wholesale. Those are the terms, the names, the GA, MGA, SGA, FMO, IMO, NMA, and there's probably some 4-letter words that I don't want to share. But that's the wholesale environment. I'm in it, and that's what I do. Somebody asked, like, why did you get in that? And I was like, I didn't know to get into anything else. It's just what we got into. So I love that. And then now you have the telephonic. So obviously a ton of huge companies doing some really fantastic stuff over the telephone to help seniors enroll in Medicare supplements, Medicare Advantage, and other products. And anyone see any direct-to-consumer online with no agent interaction yet? You guys seeing some of that now? So what that means is that you have websites and companies that there is not a number to call in to do an enrollment. It's all done self-service. And that's a very, very small piece of the business right now. Do you think it'll get bigger? It will. It will. It'll never replace us, right? I think there's a dynamic where people need education, and you can develop some really cool videos and some how-to guides, but I think at the end of the day, what you guys do in whatever environment you're in is extremely important to our Medicare population and even our underage population. But that's coming, and it's something that we just need to be ready for. Why build an agency? So when I first got in, I did go work for my dad. We had 4 employees. It was me and my dad and 2 administrative folks. And essentially we were doing group insurance and individual medical insurance. And my job at that time was to go to Ohio every week and try to knock on doors to introduce myself and our agency for the group health insurance market. And I still remember that as I would pass through a city or even stay in a city, I would grab a phone book. You guys remember phone books and yellow pages, right? I would grab a phone book, yellow pages, I would turn it to insurance, and I would rip the whole thing out. And what I would do is that was who I called to try to set my appointments. And my dad was it needs to be this way. And I think he wanted to get me out of the office doing something. But his deal was 5 appointments a day. You got to make on Monday 5 appointments, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and on your way back Friday, make 3 on the way back. And if someone doesn't show, have somebody else to go knock on their door to talk to them about products. So that's what I did in Ohio, and did it for a year or so. And I remember my dad and I would go to lunch, and we'd hang out at lunch. And one day we're having lunch. We're at this place called Tidewater in Charleston. And if everybody knows how small business works, right? All the money goes to the owner. pretty much, right? He says, Ron, he said, you're costing me $30,000 a year and you're not making me any new money. This has got to change. And we go from having this great lunch or, usual lunch, and then I'm fearful for my job and my future in whatever industry I want to be in. So that was a changing moment for me to understand I needed to make my own mark in the insurance industry. He had done a phenomenal job with what he had built. And he was basically saying, you need to figure out something else. At the same time, we got involved in the Medicare long-term care market. And that was my opportunity to try to build something on my own and try to recruit agents for long-term care. So entrepreneurial spirit, I think a lot of us, if you're here, you have it, right? No matter if it's small or big, you have it because you're here, and it gives you an opportunity to build off of that. I've always felt like, for me, it's just like continue to work hard and don't stop working hard, and then just keep doing that. But that entrepreneurial spirit that I have inside is trying to build things for people, trying to help people build things and scale things. Scaling opportunities. Do you guys have a unique lead system right now in some way? Like, there are ways to scale it. Now, I had a great conversation with a gentleman in Vegas. He works with HR professionals. Okay, so people who work in the HR world, and he has 122 of them, and they refer him all of their employees that have questions on Medicare. Anybody work with HR folks? So you think like this guy has done a fantastic job at identifying a need in the HR community, and he's been able to build up his network to 122 and does great sales with that. From a scaling perspective, how does he scale that? How does he take it from that and then invite a lot of other agents to join him in their markets to do the same thing he does in his market? And obviously, if he's able to build it, he should be compensated in some way. If he's going to teach me how to go talk to all these HR professionals and have a really intelligent conversation around how I can help them, I would love to partner with somebody like that. So if you have scaling opportunities and you're trying to figure out how to do it, that's a reason to build an agency. Obviously, it's a great revenue source. It obviously, for everybody here, everybody sell insurance here? Okay, so just real quick. So you're selling insurance and you're earning commission. Or you may be selling a book where you have other ways to derive revenue. If you get into the agency building side, there's an ability to drive revenue that's not relative to actual commission. It's called an override. Everybody has heard of an override or an overwrite before. So it's a great opportunity, but it's. I think Danielle said it earlier, it's not for everybody. It was like, you don't have to be a GA, SGA. You don't. It's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. And I like it. It works out for us, but it's not easy, but you can do it. I think some of the opportunities you have. Last night, Christian, and we're talking about a 5-year plan of growth. The question, like, as you build an agency, if you're at 2 people right now, right, how do you get to 20? And how do you get to 200? And sometimes the question around how to get from 2 to 20 to 200 isn't relative to, like, actually the dotted line it takes to hire 5 people here, hire 10 people here. But I like to think about it as like, how much production would I need to be doing to have that many employees? And then you start to understand, like, okay, I can do this much production. Like, when can I do that? What kind of year plan it would be? A quick story. My first award in the Medicare supplement space was from a company called Continental General Insurance Company out of Shawnee Mission, Kansas. Anybody ever work with them? They're a great little company. That was our very first experience in MedSup. And it was ultimately it was great for me because that was the first contract that my dad let me put my name on as opposed to his name. So when the plaque came out, it had my name on it. So that was cool for me, but it was for $1 million. And that was my first plaque. I remember going up to a place like this, accepting the award, and coming back down and sitting down and just being kind of like, man, this is fantastic. And then, like, the top award was for $20 million. I thought, man, I suck at this. I need to be better. But it was interesting because I went to my dad after that meeting, and this is still obviously being young at heart and not knowing. But I remember telling him in the basement of our office where we used to keep all of our paper supplies, I was like, Dad, we're going to do $50 million in med subs. And I'm sure he was like, get out of here. But it was an interesting dynamic to understand, like if we were going to do 50 million, what would that mean and what would it take to be there? And so in the early 2000s, we really started recruiting for Medicare supplements. We went from 1 million to 3 million to 9 million, and then got slowed down by something. You know what we got slowed down by? Medicare Advantage. So even though I wanted to do 50 million in med subs, which obviously we do that now, but I got focused on Medicare Advantage, which that just tells me it's okay to change your goals sometimes, right? Because big things happen. What types of agents should I recruit? So when I put brand spanking new on a bullet, I felt like, is that even appropriate to say? Now, so I had to Google it up, like where that came from. Do you guys know where that term came from? Babies, yeah. When they come out, I guess at some point you always had to spank them. And yeah, there we go. To make them cry so the doctor could make sure they're okay. And I was like, well, if we're doing it to babies, I can do it in a presentation. So that dynamic of brand spanking new agents, this is just a classification. And generally when we think about agency building and which agents we want to attract to our company, even if you're solo, if you're one agent now, but I've got enough opportunity to make 2 agents, it's who do I bring in as that second agent? Because I've got this great thing, I just need to scale it to 1 or 2 people. And how do I do that? So the thing with brand spanking new agents is that generally these are people not in the insurance industry today. These are folks that don't have an insurance license. But they're interested. I think Tony talked earlier about getting in the business to sell cancer plans. And I talked to several of you guys last night. I'm always extremely intrigued on how people get into this space. Because when I went to college, there wasn't a degree for it, right? There should be a degree for it. The thing I tell people is that the insurance industry and being an insurance agent is a great equalizer when it comes to education. Like you don't have to have a degree. I mean, you don't have to have a degree from Stanford or from any school. You can be in the insurance industry and be really good at people and be really good at educating folks and do what this conference says, or what Danielle said earlier was 6 figures, 7 figures, whatever you want to do. But it is so much a great equalizer. But brand spanking new agents, the advantages, they don't have any bad habits, right? Disadvantages is that you're going to have to get them licensed and train them specifically the way you want to train them. If you have a sales system today that works really well for you, sometimes that kind of agent is great. Licensed but looking. I put Tony in this bucket. I'm using you as an example a lot, but in the bucket, like you're licensed, and we run into a lot of agents who are licensed but just not productive for some reason, and they're looking for alternatives. And you can see what he was able to do when he found that alternative, right? Generally a really good group. Low volume producers, I don't want to mention any carrier names, but there are producers who are low volume, right? But they understand the Medicare space. They've been trained on this is how Medicare supplements work, this is how Medicare Advantage works. They've been in front of clients, they've gone through the full deal. What you have to train them on is how your deal works and what you want to do with that, both from a call center perspective or maybe just telephonic enrollment standpoint, or even from a feet on the street going out and meeting with clients over the kitchen table or at a Panera somewhere. And last, but certainly not least, top producers, right? So top producers are probably the hardest because their expectations and needs are so high, right? Because whatever they're doing, they're very successful at. And as you guys build your agencies, you will find some of these top producers who are attracted to you because they want either something different or they see a larger opportunity working with you and what you're trying to build. They're not easy, but they're productive, obviously. Some about value propositions. So I'm giving you like 6 here, and there are more than this, but I thought for the level of detail that we want to get into today, talking about these 6 are the ones that are the most common when you think about agency building. So the first one is an exclusive product. Does anybody have access to an exclusive product right now? Oh, Galen, there's another one. There's another one. Oh, perfect. So in the exclusive product world, the way it used to be, and kind of the way it works now, is that any agent who wants to sell this product has to come through you, okay? And generally, it means you developed the product in some way. You built it. You worked with an insurance carrier, a reinsurance company, and you built the application, you built the underwriting, you built everything about it, and it's kind of your baby, and you go out and take it. I can say right now, we don't have access to any exclusive products. If I could be better at a lot of things, I would be better at building product. But that's a great opportunity. There are also exclusive products in the Medicare Advantage space, okay? The Medicare Advantage space is made up of, I think that's good. It just says chill on the front of it, so that's good. Yes, Saved by the Bell. But the Medicare Advantage space, everybody has contracts with which carriers? United, Humana, Aetna, Cigna, right? And others. I don't want to miss anybody. But regionally, you guys are in markets where regional health plans and regional Medicare Advantage plans exist. And in those areas, they're always looking for distribution. And honestly, we see more companies coming into Medicare Advantage every year. As they come in, they need to partner with someone in the marketplace to build out distribution. And honestly, generally they come regional more than they come up to bit larger agencies like ours. You want to take a guess on why? More control? Who said that? Yep, more control is a great answer. You give them 100% focus, right? If there's somebody was here from Portland, Oregon, back there in the back, right? Portland, Oregon. If you're in Portland, there's a Medicare Advantage, there's several regional plans up there. They want to build distribution with folks who will be 100% focused on their company. And they do it regionally. And it's a great way to access additional levels of agents, and they'll be able to offer them other product lines. Technology. So as you think about technology, the first thing that comes to my mind are CRMs, enrollment platforms, quoting platforms, lead generation deals. So as you think about Medicare, like how many people use a platform that's not theirs? Yeah, okay, good. So most of us are all leveraging a partnership in some way to grab a hold of technology. Back when I first started, I had a Rolodex. Rolodex had the agent's name on it. It was alphabetized, which was great, and also had a phone number on it. And I had a yellow pad that then moved to Excel on how I keep track of the agents and agencies we were working with. Today, we have such great technology that can get to a point where you'll look at your database of customers and tell you who's the most likely to buy right now. Who's the most likely to want to move their plan in the fall. And so that technology gives you all the ability to make sure to help you manage your business in a much different way than what it was in the past. Training and mentorship, this conference is a great opportunity for mentorship. It's something where you can plug into other people. The panel that I was on at the Medicare conference, it was interesting. We had some heavyweights on the panel, right? And the panel was like 5 or 6 of us. We had Brian Keevan. I mean, Brian Keevan. He's with AmeriLife now. He's been at Aetna. He's been at Aetna, Bloom. He has an amazing background. We had a gentleman who was the chief marketing officer from Easy Care, which is a lot of direct-to-consumer enrollments. And obviously me, not a heavy hitter, but on the panel for some reason. And then we also had this one agent I mentioned to you guys earlier. And our topic was generating Medicare supplement leads with in the new world, right? And you've got all these guys talking, and as the panel went, I kept the guy sitting beside me. His name was Mike, and I said, Mike knows everything we need to know. Like the 4 of us who are a CMO, a CEO, Brian, who's a VP of P&L at AmeriLife. We know the industry, but there's people here that know exactly how to educate you on driving leads in a local way. And so when you look at training and mentorship, you need to plug into somebody. Like we're going to have a Q&A coming up, and I'd love to see what kind of questions you guys have. And you'll be able to, like, we can connect. I'll be here this afternoon, obviously, and but you need to find 2 or 3 good mentors that you can plug into, and for them to be kind of on your side as you kind of move through your career in the insurance business. Because the great thing about mentors, one, there's a motivational factor behind them, but then 2, they give you shortcuts, right? Because they've either done it in some way. And that mentorship is great. It's something that, from an integrity marketing group perspective, it's great to have other managing partners like Galen Hendricks and others that we can really work together and do some really cool stuff because we have such good experience in the business. And she can be a mentor of mine, like she has for years, and and vice versa. And that's great for all of us, right? And it's great for the business. So find that. Virtual space and office space. Office space is not nearly as critical as what it used to be. Today, I think most people work from home office. Some people have brick and mortar. You'll find more and more shops popping up. If you think about, like, in your hometown, whatever your main drag is, not necessarily in the downtown city, but where you can drive and maybe every 10 seconds see a PNC agency, see a State Farm, Allstate, you can see them all. The one thing you never see or very infrequently see is a Medicare shop, which is crazy. Like, why do we not have more of that? And I think it's an interesting dynamic. And I think if the PNC guys understood how good Medicare was, and they put Medicare on the boards, it may cause a little bit of a problem for us in our local markets. So, and then obviously lead programs. Lead programs aren't always an actual lead or a warm transfer that comes in or something you are purchasing or buying. Those are all great, and they need to be a part of what you do as you build your company because you'll find great lead sources. And then some point, like Boomer, you'll create your own leads. But lead sources can also be the gentleman we talked about who worked with all the HR representatives. I mean, that is a great model that at the end of the day will continue to produce high quality referrals of folks who have questions in the Medicare space. And to his point, when the HR manager leaves one company, they don't leave the HR manager business. They stay in it and they go to a new company. And he'll get calls from the new company and saying, hey, is there any way you could do for me what you did at my last company? And I'm sure he's like, well, I don't know, But I'm sure he's like, yes, absolutely I can. He's doing the happy dance all day. But these are just six value prop examples. The one thing I would say is that if you are going from just you solo or bringing on 2, or you're going to 20, or you want to go to 200, whatever you want to go, base it off of what your value prop is and what you can deliver. Because if you have a really cool value prop, it allows you to scale and move very quickly. Okay? How to define your value proposition. Obviously, what am I best at? How are you guys doing what you do now? Is there a way you could train somebody else to do the same thing, right? And be more effective in whatever marketplaces you want to be in? What is most needed? So I go back to technology and what I thought was really needed, which was call recording, but you guys told me that call recording, we don't need to build it. But you think about the dynamic of what is needed in the industry, and if you can solve that, even if it's what is needed in my local market, you can solve something like that and use that to build off of. And last but not least, what is unique about what I can do? I tell people you can't teach tall. You are either tall or you're not tall. Like, I do really good at grocery stores lifting cereal boxes for people who come up and ask me. But you are obviously unique at something, and you're unique at that today. When I first got in this business, I was probably introvert. I never thought about being up in front of people. I never thought about doing this stuff. But it became something that I was manageable, I can do, and it's something that I enjoy now. So whatever you're unique at today, there's an opportunity to build that out as a value proposition to attract other agents to work with you. But there are also some things in the next 2 or 3 years you'll become very good at. And open your mind to those things becoming opportunities to build out your business. And let's talk about partnerships. So when we were taking 30 slides and trying to jam them into 12, one of the things I realized is that as time has changed, there's been so much opportunity that's created through partnerships, and obviously Galen and I would say the Integrity Marketing Group partnership has given us tons of opportunity that we didn't have on our own, right? But the old school way of building an agency was you either buy it, build it, or invent it. You do it all on your own, and you go buy the office desk, you buy the chair, you buy the phone system, you buy the computers, you may have the actual retail site. Obviously, all those things are high cost, timeline struggles. You will have two staff fighting over the shade in the smoking section of the parking lot, and you got to figure out how to manage that HR, situation. And at the end of the day, you're unable to do what you love, right? Now you can do that, and that's the way I was able, and my dad, we were able to build our company. But at that time, there wasn't opportunities to partner. In this new world of today, like where we are today, partnering with somebody trusted like Christian or anybody else in this room, it puts you in a position where it's no or low cost, right? How many enrollment platforms do you get for free right now? Almost most of them, right? Do you think there's a cost to it? Any idea how much it costs? Hundreds of thousands, yeah, millions of dollars. So Connexure, Sunfire, you guys know those names? So they don't work for free. So they're charging somebody, right? And it's a per enrollment cost. So if you think about all the enrollments you do, somebody is paying that fee for you. So it's an expensive proposition. But the great thing with partnerships is you have access to technology, access to maybe lead sources, training, all the things that the groups out there can do at no cost or a very low cost. It gives you the ability to immediately scale. And if somebody's got a great idea, we can talk about it anytime. But the two things I love, and which I'm trying to continue to promote, are incubators and accelerators, right? And the thought is, when you have a great idea or a great opportunity, a lot of you may be executing very well on that now. But if you stick that into an incubator of some really smart people, all of a sudden you see some high-end potential for that idea, right? And all you need at that point is just a way to scale that up, okay? And if you partner with somebody that could say, love your idea, here's a couple things you could do to make it better, I'd love to connect you with 300 agents, in the next 30 days for you to pitch that idea to and try to get up and running. That's a great way to scale your business. And it puts you in a position where you don't have to go find those 300 on your own. No staffing, obviously, and kind of back to the bottom line, focus on what you love to do. I think as I have continued to be in the business, I've done it all. Like my very first job at the company was to run insurance quotes. So there was a time when you couldn't just go online and run a quote, right? You had to find somebody else to do it. So my job was I would get an index card. It was name, date of birth, smoker, non-smoker, zip code, and which individual medical plan they would get. And I would run 60, 70 quotes a day. I would print it out. I'd build a fax cover sheet. I would fax that out to the agent. And every time I would fax, I'm like, are they just spreadsheeting us? Like, what's going on? But I remember in the first month, I noticed on all these index cards, there was a check with a circle on it. And I went to one of the administrators that had worked for my dad, and I said, well, what's this check mean? And she was like, well, we've already run these. Like, we just want to see if you can run them or not. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, I've been running these for like 3 weeks. So it was a great life lesson to be more attentive. So anyway, but to focus on what you love to do, as you guys build your businesses, and as you kind of continue to define what success means to you, you want to do it in a way which you really enjoy it. And I think for some of you that have businesses today, the one thing that I'm not passionate about but can handle is HR. Like, I love my people, and some people sometimes need a little bit of loving from a different department than me. But like, if I focused my time and effort on HR issues, we would definitely get those done. But I would rather be in a position where someone else can do those while I go out and do things like this for Christian or meet with other business leaders and try to work on strategic new cool things in our industry. So the great thing about scale or partnering is you get all those things generally at no cost or low cost, and you don't have to try to go build it, buy it, or do it all yourself. From a next step perspective, if you guys are interested in going from 1 to 2, 2 to 20, or whatever size, the first thing I would say from a next step is define your value proposition. What is it about you that people will gravitate towards, and that what opportunities can you present to agents that they don't have access to now? Everybody's got them, and just identifying that and putting that out you'll attract new agents. Partner for what you need. You don't have to partner for everything, but if we could have partnered back in 96, 98, 2000, I'm sure we would have gotten to 50 million in production a lot quicker than we did. Set aside time. There is a dynamic that we see in agencies that at some point, the principal who started the company stops writing business, right? Or at least stops knocking on doors, or at least kind of continues to move from 100% sales in the marketplace to maybe 30%, 50%, or 70%. But the key on setting aside time is you truly have to build your day around how much time can you apply to agency building today, or developing your value prop, or finding a partnership, versus what you have to do every day, which is sales and meeting with all your customers and clients. And then last step is just start building. I think it's clear from the presenters before me, it doesn't have to be right. I mean, back to video creation, the story I had on me sending out a MedSup piece that was 30% out of the market, it doesn't always have to be right. But if you get started, it helps. And the saying around, if you have to build a plane as you're going down the runway, what does it have to do at the very end? Take off. What do you not need on that plane for it to take off? People. You don't need people. You don't need extra baggage. You don't need bathrooms. So it's like you don't need chairs. You need basically wings, engine, alcohol, to Galen's perspective. But the point is, as you build it, it gets better, but it's just got to get off the ground. And I wish you guys the best. I think the way to connect, if you're interested, I'm not generally a person who's on a lot of social media. Maybe that's my introverted nature. I'm not good at it. But my email always works. LinkedIn always works. I had that same shirt on earlier, and I had to take it off because that's my profile pic for the meeting. So I had to change shirts. Yeah. So real quick, the party that we went to the night was 90s, right? The theme was 90s. And I walked in and I've been wearing a blue jacket and brown pants since the 90s. This is my uniform. So, but with all that said, I thought we would spend a couple minutes. If you guys have questions that you're curious about, we can start asking. I got a mic here.
I'll start. Did you wear that to the 90s party?
No, I actually wore a polo shirt. Oh, okay. So yeah. There's the mic. Yeah. So good. You can speak too.
Yep. Brandon Todd here. Congratulations on all your success. I just
Thank you.
Ask you if you could help me. You're in a good position to help me kind of make my crystal ball work a little bit.
Yeah.
In the industry. I was getting really clear on what was going to happen. It was just okay. So integrity is going to own or control all of us completely pretty soon. And
right.
Then all of a sudden these guys like Christian and Justin and all these influencers are coming out with the cell phone and YouTube camera and channels.
Yeah.
They're just like completely disrupting everything that we thought was
Sure.
going to happen. What do you think is going to happen to the FMO model in general? As carriers are responding to these changes, and in general, what the future is going to handle and how we're going to sort all through that?
So I'll take. It's a great question, Brandon. Thanks for it. I'll take it in a couple different pieces. The first thing on Integrity Marketing Group. Has anybody heard of them before? So so integrity is. I was asked last week. So where is this all headed? What is going to happen, right? And I think if I could boil down integrity to 30 seconds, which is hard, is that really integrity is trying to do a great job at being between the carrier and the consumer, right? And so the world that we live in here is that we're in the distribution side of that, which means for a carrier to connect to a consumer, they have to have agents, they have to have GAs and FMOs, and they have to have distribution. And so the role that I've played and Galen and played and others is that's the distribution side. So Integrity's helping carriers build better and more technology-driven distribution. But carriers also connect with advertising. Now, you see commercials on TV, and you see AARP's name everywhere, Humana's name everywhere. And Integrity has a great company called Thomas Arts. They're a partner of mine. They're here in Salt Lake. They have a couple different offices. So they continue to work with carriers in a different way. We have product development. We have technology with CSG, Medicare Center. We have all these things that really try to make it easier for carriers to connect with consumers. And if we can be a small piece in the overall goal of delivering better health care or better options for consumers, then that's what we kind of want to do. But to your second question around disruption. So I do not want to take this as claim to fame because I know everybody's junk email folder is probably full right now of agent pipeline emails. But when I came up in the business, again, it was 96, 98, right? And told you I had a Rolodex, told you I had a piece of paper. Our first email address was an AOL email address. It was int.bin.inc at AOL. And no one really had email. But one of the reasons I think I was successful over time is I don't want to say this wrong, but kind of spearheaded email marketing for insurance products. And we did it. It was successful. There were very few people in that space doing it. We got lots of responses on it. And it's not nearly as good as what it was. You guys would say that now. The filters cleared all out. But what is great is what Medicare Gurus is doing, what Christian Brindle's doing. That's a disruption to our space. And honestly, if I was 10 or 15 years younger, or maybe I was smarter, or maybe I would do that too. But that disruption will continue to happen. But at the end of the day, carriers still need distribution. So whether that's through an FMO model or through some other hierarchical model, they have to have distribution. And the way that carriers look at it is, I can go hire agent pipeline. Do you know how much it costs to hire me? Zero. So I assume all the risk on all the work to build the distribution for the carrier. And if the product's terrible, then I lost a ton of money, right? How many have experienced carriers pulling out of markets? Yeah. So you think about Medicare Advantage plans, we've had so many pullouts over the last, 10 or 15 years that's a huge cost too, because you really partner with that carrier to go in. So long story short is carriers, they don't spend money on distribution until distribution sells, right? So you get an override. So it's a great way to go to market. And if your product's is in a bad year, then you're not paying much for that distribution because there's not many sales. So I think there will always be a need. And some of the things that we all do now, training, education, platform, technology, all those things help agents either accelerate or learn or do new things. So I hope that helped, Brandon. I'm not sure if it did. So I just generally just talk, and it just kind of keeps coming. So, yep.
My name is Larry Boyce. You had mentioned earlier about agency principals eventually, merging to where they're working in the business instead of working on the business.
Yep.
Is there like a number that you see where successful, principal owners, they stop working with
Yeah.
clients? Is it a certain number of town lines, or a certain number of renewals, or is it just different for everybody?
So-
Depending on the goals?
So the easy answer is it's different for everybody, right? I can just say that all day and it'd be easy. But I think what it really relates to, so his question is, at what point do I stop doing face-to-face sales and be 100% working on whatever I'm creating? And I think it relates back to the scale and opportunity that you have to build. Meaning that if you're going from 1 to 2, and at 2 I'm kind of maxing out the capacity of whatever my opportunity is, then I'm going to continue to sell as 1, right? But if you need to go to 1 to 200 and you need to scale quickly, then your timing of when you stop selling, or at least slow down, because I think people never really stop. I talked to folks today that Galen probably still sells, Taylor probably still sells. I know Taylor does. Everybody still, but at some point you work on the bigger opportunity that you're trying to create, and then let that be the guide from a revenue standpoint. So I know it's not a good answer, but okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. Well,
Anyone
check
else?
mark. Yep, good.
Hi, so my name's Frank Ryan. We've done a lot of movement in the market, in the senior market, as far as agencies and big call centers and whatnot having problems expanding and contracting.
Yep.
And we've seen a lot of difficulty getting agents who want to continue a career able to move over the contracts. Not at all, y'all been great.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
But how would you advise us to actually be able to go ahead and go, hey, this person was laid off, or this person laid off.
Yeah.
We need to get that contract to move over so we can actually do business and continue to make a living for good agents.
Right. Sure.
Right? How do we get that happening when that other call center or that other entity is either not around?
Sure.
Or is it just isn't going to be left?
Yep. Great question. And what was your name again?
Frank Ryan.
Frank. Thank you, Larry. Your last name was hard for me to pronounce. There you go. So it's a great question. So what Frank's talking about is if you've kept up with stock prices of publicly traded call centers right now, where are they headed? Down. And so there's this dynamic in that marketplace. They are laying off agents or call center reps, and it's because they have a problem with their lifetime value. Is what it is. So I'm a real big believer on this business is a relationship business, and Brian will say, as soon as we forget that, we'll be out of business. So the downside of that is that I will have a lot of great relationships with call centers, distributors. I can pick up the phone and call somebody and try to have a good conversation of how this is a win-win for everybody and help that process out. That is one way to do it, but whoever you work with, it's trying to leverage them some. So I would be obviously more than happy to have those conversations for anybody in here, but that's generally the best way. It takes a conversation. And for those of you who run call centers in here, obviously sometimes there's debt, sometimes there's other things that are complicated that we're trying to recover, but that's not a great answer either, but that's what I'm going to tell you. Sorry. But I told somebody this last night.
We gotta work on your self-confidence.
I know. So, yeah. So if anybody play golf, so I love for whatever reason being the underdog. So if we get on the number one tee, I'm like, guys, I just don't have it today. I don't know what it is. It's going to be a bad day. And then you stroke one down the middle, and everybody's like, he's pretty good. So if I start as an underdog, anything I say sounds better than what you guys expected. So sandbagging may be part of it. But to another point to your question, and this can kind of go back to old school and new school. I am a big believer in being nice. I think Tony, in a very gracious way, mentioned it earlier. But man, it doesn't hurt to be nice, right? And I think what I learned over time is that if you in a people relationship, there are things that come up that are difficult, right? It always happens. But the better you can be in those difficult moments, the more people remember that. And to your point, if I can reach out to somebody, it's only because I was nice to them at some point and they have some sort of respect for me, and I can make that call. So being nice wins. It's worked out for me. So.
Any more questions?
Yep, good.
As an independent agent, well, for example, we have been this for a year and a half, and I've kind of thought about maybe trying to recruit other people. But
Yeah.
like, hey, I also don't want anything to take the focus off of getting my book to where I can comfortably live on the
Right, yeah.
without having to worry about the next meal. And not that I worry that much now, but
Sure.
I want to make sure that I get in a secure spot. So, like, when do you think it's good for independent agents to start recruiting on their own? And then should they start after like 6 months or a year? 2 years?
So this is another bad answer. Sorry, Galen. So back to Larry's question, it's like, when's the right time? When we first got in the senior business, my first job was to go recruit long-term care agents in Virginia. And this was right after the conversation where my dad said, you're costing me $30,000 a year, you need to make me new money. So I was like, great, I'll go do long-term care. And I asked my dad for another $30,000 to go spend on CE classes and seminars in Virginia. It was 3 weeks. We had a total of 9 classes. And I used to tell the story that we had like 950 agents come through, right? But I actually found a backup. It says my documents, 2004. So I opened that CD up the other day, and I found the actual list. It was like 622, so the story's a little bit smaller. And we're in insurance, everything's a little bit, you know. But in that dynamic, we did all these seminars. We had all these agents come through, and the company we had got an exclusive product with, it was a long-term care product, the week after we got back called and said, hey, we're going to have to pull that product from the state of Virginia because we can't get it approved. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We just spent all this time. I doubled down with my dad, took all this risk. And I say that to say, at some point, what you see is an obvious answer. It's time to make a change. And for me at that time, I had to make a change. And fortunately, Continental General, which was the company we talked about, they had this little product in the back of the portfolio called a Medicare supplement. And I was like, man, what's a Medicare supplement? And all of a sudden, it was competitive. If you guys know Virginia, you have Northern Virginia, D.C., you have Virginia Beach, you have Richmond, and then you have Roanoke in the western part of the state, which is literally just West Virginia, right? In that one small pocket, it was competitive. We started promoting Medicare supplements. I didn't know who Mutual of Omaha was at the time. I didn't know Senior Market Sales, didn't know AmeriLife. I didn't know anybody. But I knew that I had this small product, and that's how we got started. So to your question, sometimes you'll have something as specific as that moment that forces you to go a different direction. At other times, it's not specific, but your gut tells you that you need to move and make a change. When we got back in the ACA space, back in 2014, the carriers weren't paying any commission. We had no idea if there would be override. We didn't even know at that point if you could sell ACA at 7-Eleven. Like, we didn't know the dynamic. But I felt like there's going to be a need for distribution to be built in this space. And if you take a chance and build it, worst case scenario, you don't get paid. Best case scenario, you establish yourself as a fast mover and get in that industry. So again, not a great answer, but maybe give you a little bit of insight on that. So yeah, for sure. Yep.
I'm Gabrielle Lopez. I just been lucky enough that my upline is giving me some agents to start as a
Yeah.
trade. And it just seems like there's a big mix of quality in terms of.
Sure.
And so what I was curious about is, do you know what best practices make an agent successful and there for the longevity? And if there's 10 agents that you're working with, how many are usually standing within 3 years? I guess I'm trying to get a gauge for what
Yeah.
is realistic, and then what are some best practices to
Okay.
make them successful?
So the first thing. So her question was around how, if you have a group of agents, how do you identify characteristics that will make those agents successful in the future, and how many will stick around for 3 years or 4 years? So through all the people I've met, people here and other business leaders in the industry, there's one thing that holds true 100% of the time, is they have an amazing work ethic, right? You can't get around it. I think insurance is a very difficult space that if you don't have a good work ethic, that you're going to be successful in. And so I think that would be the first characteristic. No matter what they do currently or whatever the challenge has been to their success, if they're willing to wake up early and not stop, then that's a key. For me, that's something that we look at all the time. We look at it in the employees that we hire and also look at it on the agent side. To your question around like how many stick around, this is a transient business, right? And I think part of it is, you do have some low-performing agents that are always looking to go somewhere else, right? I would say let them go somewhere else because your time's super important, right? And I think there are agents that would stick around. I would say less than half would be with you for that 3-year period, so probably 5. Well, let's go with half, 5. Let the other ones go. Focus on finding new hardworking agents or working with whoever you work with and say, hey, I need some more agents. I want to get bigger, right? So you're welcome. Yep.
Last question.
Yep. Oh, that's good.
Zach Munger, so you talked about how the carriers need us as the distribution.
Yep.
And we're all held to such high standards,
AHIP and all these certs and all the stuff, the hoops you have to jump through, right, just to be able to do this. And sometimes it feels like, Galen, this is probably a good one for you, and I don't even know if you'll have the answer. Why are Integrity or even Nahu maybe not able to go back to the carriers and hold them to some accountability when it comes to contracting, how they pay us? You know, some of the smaller agencies in here probably know what I'm talking about. It's frustrating when, you know, you write Aetna, you get the HRA one day, you see part commission, you know, they'll pay a partial, and then maybe you get the true up down the line, and it's like other carriers, they'll pay it all up front. And one contract is, you know, Anthem is hell sometimes to contract with, or no more.
Yeah, for sure.
And you might have a smaller carrier that it's a couple pages. Why can't we hold them to some accountability and have the Integrities, the AmeriLifes, the big boys, and
Sure.
whatever,
Yeah.
say, like, we need some standardization. Because I look at when I started as a broker, and my original mentor, he's in the room back here, you know, he was great at helping me walk through some of these contracts and stuff, but even he, as a veteran, wasn't necessarily an expert at this.
Sure.
Think about somebody who's trying to get started. There's enough that you worry about.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to be stressed over, did I sign the right contract? So, like, I had a few downline agents. One somehow became an LOA to Justin Brock.
Yeah.
Wisconsin, Mississippi, you know. One became a GA,
Okay.
so I didn't get any overrides.
Yeah.
And then another one, somehow her commissions are assigned to me, and now it's hell trying to pay it all out.
Sure.
And me as little Packland insurance advisors trying to fix all this, let me get my legal team.
Yeah.
You know, like, so
So-
I'm just curious from a integrity
Sure.
partner standpoint.
You keep pushing it on me like you.
Well, I'm just saying, like, whether it's you guys or,
Sure,
like
right.
I said, or not,
I would agree.
Why can't we hold them to some more accountability and be like, hey, you need to standardize this for us?
You should.
You should.
And
Yeah.
get the United, the Aetna, the Humana, the Cigna, and the WellCare CEOs in a room together or whatever, and be like, hey, we love working with you guys. We don't want to
Yeah.
break this. We don't want to break the system, but it needs to be fixed.
So it's a great question, and I think probably to boil it down is how do we leverage the carriers to create better opportunities and systems and administrative back offices for agents and distribution, right? So it's a big question because obviously we look at carriers doing some really cool stuff with products. They keep those prices low for us on the Medicare supplement side. They keep their networks great, their plan benefits great on the Medicare Advantage side. And so there's a little bit of a push-up. I mean, part of it is the better and more money they spend on those things, where does it come from? It comes from product, right? So your question is, so the answer is, your question is a great question. It's not something you can slam your hand and say, we got to fix this. The only way that you can do that is if you stop selling. And obviously clients still need this carrier's product, right? So what we try to do from a partnership perspective with the carriers is work with them on exactly what we see and try to deliver best practices from the industry on how to fix those. Some carriers do a fantastic job. Like, we love it, we want the feedback, we want it direct, we'll fix this, we'll fix this, we'll fix this. And you guys know which ones you love to work with, right? It wasn't overnight. There was a time with that carrier that it was a struggle to work with. But some don't, and we just got to continue to push that message up, use our size or leverage that we have to do it, but knowing that consumers still need some of those products or all those products, they need access to them. So we can't just, say we won't sell it. But
Well said.
I feel your pain, though. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. So,
Ryan Kimble, everybody.
yeah, sure.
Big round of applause.
Oh, really?